Where will I see record? Okay, it's live. Okay. Today, I'd like to talk about deadlines. 10 things to know about deadlines, due dates. If you're like many other people, I will leave time for the collective groan that will arise on hearing the word deadlines and due dates. And I think that's exactly why they need to be talked about openly, because no one ever tells you this until much later, when it may be too late, unless you're in the real world where deadlines are an everyday fact of life. But deadlines can actually help you. And I want to tell you how to make them work for you. You may dread them, but I want to persuade you the deadlines are really your friend. So that is point number one. Deadlines are not your enemy. They are your friends. And you have to get out of that middle school mindset that they're buzzkills. If you treat them with some respect, they will definitely give back to you. And the thing to know about deadlines is that they're respectful benchmarks of accountability. They prompt you to gather your thoughts and to try out your ideas, which is what all writing is about. So they encourage you to think out your ideas and how you're going to express them. Because unless you do that, you don't really know who you are or what you're capable of. And I want to repeat that unless you think out your ideas and how you're going to express them, how you're going to word them, you have no idea who you are. And you have certainly no idea what you are capable of. Number two, the most common reasons I've observed, and I've been an editor and a writer dealing with deadlines for a very long time, but the two most common reasons I've observed that people treat deadlines abusively is they fear exposing themselves, or they subscribe to the very widespread myth that you're most creative under pressure. Those who study procrastination and putting things off find that people put off tasks and deadlines because they're really afraid of being judged negatively. But if you keep putting something off, you never have to risk judgment. So you never know for sure. Most of the time, that's just anxiety speaking, and it's a fear, not a fact. But if it turns out that in fact you lack information or you lack skill, both of them are remediable. You can fix them. And you'll never know for sure whether you can pull something off until you meet the deadline to perform. So, but putting off deadlines is a terrible experience. It's very punishing. It keeps you anxious. It keeps you worrying about the missed deadline. It keeps you disliking yourself for your failure to measure up to meet the deadline. And if you really need improvement, which you only know by performing and being judged, putting off a deadline keeps you from learning how to be better and from even excelling. Number 3, don't delude yourself that the muse will magically strike as the deadline looms. This is part of the myth that you're most creative under pressure. Most people in the real world have been disabused of that idea, but lots of students harbor that belief. And it's a lie. It's a lie that people tell themselves to justify putting off the task of writing, putting off the task of showing up. If you're going to wait for the muse to strike or some time to magically clear to give you the room to write, it just never happens. You actually have to make it. You've got to clear the space. You've got to bite the bullet and just sit down and earmark the space and show up for that. Number 4, deadlines are not things to slam against, because you'll never get to explore the full reach of your thoughts, and therefore you'll miss knowing yourself, and you'll miss the opportunity to surprise yourself and stimulate yourself and kind of enjoy a part of yourself. If you're like most people, you don't really know what you think until you think it, until you write it. That's because writing demands a certain kind of mental processing. And the fact is that when you give yourself enough time to write, when you have enough room in front of your deadline, you can explore ideas and information. You can research topics. You can research them adequately. You can gain some new insights and understanding, and you can ignite your own curiosity and satisfy it and discover all kinds of new, fun, and interesting things. And then when you write, what you write will shine with the excitement of discovery. And then that not only wins people over and makes people receptive to what you write, but you gain pride and self-respect and a sense of accomplishment. And those are really important things to have. And you earn them by showing up, meeting deadlines, and performing, and giving yourself the room to perform your best. So number 5, think of deadlines as an end date. It's not a start date. That's not when you first sit down. So don't wait for a deadline approaching to start writing or working on any project. Start writing your ideas down immediately after you're given an assignment. And keep a file with all jottings of your ideas. It doesn't have to be organized. Just write a note and just toss it either into a paper file or a file on your mobile phone or on your computer. And just toss ideas as you get them into that file. Whenever you have a thought, wherever you are, and you have a thought, jot down the note. And there's just no excuse for not doing that. And then when you're ready to sit down and write, you kind of go over your notes. You can look at them, decide, oh, some are not so hot, some are okay, some sort of lead to more thinking, more ideas. Those are the good ones, the keepers. The important thing is that doing this gives you something concrete to work with. because starting and knowing where to start and how to start is really one of the hardest parts of writing. So if you put notes on your phone or in a folder or on your laptop, you've got something to start with, something really concrete to work from. You're not working with a blank mind. And you're building a work. You're assembling the materials that are going to be part of what you write, part of your project. And most of the time, good work really takes work. So it doesn't come in one burst of brilliance. It happens over a period of time. Number 6. It's very helpful to set interim deadlines. If you have an ambitious or a challenging project, give yourself deadlines in small chunks. Write down or set and mark down the final deadline when you want to be finished. And then reverse engineer from that the rest, other deadlines. So set a date from now when you get the assignment. Set a date for a reasonable chunk of the work to be done. And then set another deadline for a reasonable chunk after that one, and so on. And mark those dates on your calendar in advance. My feeling is you should do it just as soon as you get an assignment and have a due date for a paper or any other kind of project, or even studying for a test. Mark these on your calendar and then give yourself weekly reminders between now and that due date to think about the task that you have. That will really help you very concretely. Number 7, the hardest thing about beginning a paper or a project is knowing where to begin or just finding the words to begin. But guess what? If you've given yourself the time to start well before your deadline, you don't have to start at the beginning. You can start wherever you're most comfortable or knowledgeable, wherever the heck you want. Once you get into it, once you start anywhere, so the appetite for the rest will start building because you'll begin to know what's connected to what you write, and pretty soon you'll start figuring out how to connect what you need to say to that first part that you wrote. But it all starts with sitting down and giving yourself enough time before your final deadline. Number 8, here's why interim deadlines help you. They encourage you to be reasonably consistent in a writing schedule. When you do that, you get a pace. And it becomes a routine, and that makes it easier. And soon your mind is geared to the routine. It's expecting it. It wants to use that time. And then you wind up accomplishing things. And what happens when you accomplish things? You feel good about yourself. And that, in turn, shows up in your writing. And it makes it easier to write the next time. Number 9. Here's another way that interim deadlines help you and work for you. When you work at a regular pace, having the interim deadlines, sort of spacing out, pacing out all the work that you need to do, rather than working in a crunch, you begin to discover what sorts of conditions encourage the flow of words, the flow of writing, the flow of thinking, and what things don't. And that is really quite a magical experience, because then you learn how you work best, and then you become able to set up those conditions the next time. And so it becomes easier and easier and easier to write and to work on what you have to do. And you know what things work for you, what things work against you. And you come away knowing how to create conditions under which you work best, and you create them, and it just simplifies your life enormously. I know that if I'm starting on a really hard chunk of material, I have to approach it in the morning. Now, mind you, I'm someone who's at my computer writing from roughly 8:30 in the morning till 6 at night. And I know if I have something really hard to tackle, I'm going to be doing it in the morning. I've tried it in the afternoon. It doesn't work unless it's connected to other stuff that I've done, and my mind is bursting with information. That doesn't happen all the time. If I have to do the tough slogging to get something down on paper, I've got to do it in the morning. And I know if I wait until the afternoon, I've kind of lost the whole day. I don't like doing that. I don't have days to waste like that. So, you find out things. I've found out ways to, when I'm writing a book, I've found out ways to crack a really difficult chapter or section of a chapter. I know what to do to get my head full of ideas so that my brain is bursting with wanting to write. And part of it has to do with reading my material over, but not in front of the computer. And reading all my material without a computer sort of fills my brain to capacity with information, and I have to then rush to my computer and let it all out, and that just starts the process of writing, because you can't write if you don't have anything in your head. You have to have something in your head to write from. Could be your own ideas, it could be information that you've researched, and if you're doing work for school, it's likely to be something that you've had to research. Number 10, in setting your interim deadlines, leave a little time before the actual final due date, because you want to leave a little bit of time for editing. And what I mean by editing is looking over everything that you've done and filling in the holes, the places where you think it's a little incomplete. And the fact is that after you've written something, you really don't know what you think about something until after you've written it. And you don't know what's most important. So when you leave a little bit of time for editing after you finish writing, you give yourself the opportunity to rearrange things, would you only get ideas about after you finish the whole thing, and things then begin to take shape in your mind. And writers joke that they really don't know what their book is about. Book authors joke that they don't know what it's about until after they've written it. And that's when the whole thing becomes clear, and the relationship of the parts, the whole. And if you give yourself that little time before you have to turn it in, you could just do that little polishing, that little fixing to satisfy you. And of course, it shows in the final work, and that helps whatever grade you're going to get. So it really doesn't all come together in your head until it's all written. And that's when you go back and sort of add the finishing touches. And you go back and you go over the paper and you edit it yourself. You refine your thinking, you fix the wording, you move around parts maybe where you explain things, and be kind to yourself. Leave plenty of time for this part, because the hard work is really done. The sitting down and thinking out and the writing of it is done. It's almost pleasurable to do the editing part, just to get it, now I understand, and just get it right into the perfect place. And when you do that, you're kind to yourself, you're kind to your work, and you improve, and it shows in your work. And that's why that when you respect the deadlines and leave enough time in advance, it really works for you, works for the work that you do, and ultimately makes it easier the next time. You're learning more about yourself, you're learning how to work as well as what you're working on. And those are my 10 points for making deadlines your friends and letting them work for you.